My first tattoo is a quote from the White Witch herself, Stevie Nicks, next to a blooming lotus flower. The quote reads, "I have no fear, I have only love." This quote on my skin serves as a permanent reminder to stay grounded and centered in love, and to act intentionally from that place instead of from fear. This is the way of the Priestexx. Like a phoenix rises from the ashes, the lotus blooms through mud. The lotus flower is a symbol of rebirth, renewal, and growing through challenges. While 19-year-old Lee didn't fully realize what they were engraving onto this body, almost 30-year-old Lee understands that my intuition was already guiding me onto this path of the Priestexx. What is up, my witches? Welcome to the Queer Soul Alchemy podcast, a supportive community helping queer folks to embrace their authentic selves by exploring yoga, astrology, and spirituality. I'm your host, Lee Davey. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host and favorite queer NB Priestexx, Lee Davey, your humble soul shepherd, your inner alchemy doula, your dad on vacation if your dad was a queer non-binary Priestexx. You may be thinking, you say that every episode, Lee, but what the heck does it actually mean? Are you just making words up? And to that I say, kind of. Today's episode is all about unlearning the illusion of duality, especially within the context of queer spirituality. We will discuss the great remembrance and awakening of queer priestexes everywhere. We're transcending gender binaries and reclaiming queer joy as spiritual resistance. We will define this term, priestexx, and we will discover 7 signs that you are a part of the sacred queer priestexx uprising that is happening on Earth right now. But first, new episodes of this podcast drop every Wednesday, posted to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Wherever you're listening from, please help me feel like I'm not just screaming into the vast and lawless black hole of the internet by leaving me a link, a comment, and a nice little 5-star review. Make sure you subscribe, honey, because it really helps other queer spiritual seekers find this magic. Don't miss out on exclusive access to my free self-care resource guide, which I've specifically curated for you to support your journey with spirituality. To download this guide and be the first to know about upcoming queer yoga retreats and events, please sign up for our email newsletter at www.youareloved.one/pod. What do you guys want to hear about next? You can message me anytime at that same link on our website, which will also always be linked in the show notes for you, and tell me your story for a chance to be featured on the podcast, because your story matters, and sharing our stories makes us stronger as a community. All right, y'all, let's dive in. We will start big picture with some yoga philosophy on this illusion of duality. So as a pansexual, polyamorous, non-binary yoga practitioner, I see everything in the human experience as being on a spectrum. And I often joke that I use all of these labels that are for people that don't like labels, the labels for the labelless, the people that don't like to conform to any type of box. For example, I'm non-binary in the sense of having all the gender, meaning that most of the time I tend to feel very masculine and very feminine at the same time. Some folks are agender, meaning that they feel genderless. They don't identify with either side of the spectrum necessarily, and they are also non-binary. Then there are other non-binary people who may identify closer to one side of the spectrum than the other, or their gender identity might feel fluid and ever evolving. Basically, attempting to list all the possible ways that a person can be non-binary would keep us here a while, because there's no right or wrong way. It's a spectrum. And then there are binary trans people who do identify as one side of the binary. And then I've also recently learned that asexuality is similar to non-binary in that it can be a little difficult to define. And that challenges our thinking habits, right? So pansexuality and polyamory are similar in how all of these concepts challenge social norms. Even bisexuality, right? I think part of the reason biphobia exists is because humans really want to put things into nice, neat little categories and boxes. Bisexuality is hard for a lot of people to even wrap their minds around just because they're used to that either or thinking, like either you're this or you're that, and you can't be both at once. So I think to an extent, it makes us feel safe and it gives us an illusion of feeling in control. If we're able to kind of label things and categorize it and put things into boxes like this is this, we feel like we're kind of in control, at least of the narrative, right? Humans love trying to understand and be in control by putting things into those little boxes. But the reality is that so much of life and the human experience doesn't fit nice and neatly into a little box, right? Now, let me clarify that I cannot and do not claim to speak for the entire trans or non-binary or LGBTQ plus community on this. The only experience that I can actually accurately share is my own. And if you have a different experience, that's wonderful. Please share it with us in the comments. My point with all of this is that there are a lot of concepts under the umbrella of the LGBTQ plus community or the queer community that are like this, right? They defy the binary and therefore they challenge the illusion of duality that we're so indoctrinated into. And because queer people have already had to challenge those indoctrinated belief systems, at least to some extent, they may have an easier time of challenging that binary and seeing past this illusion of duality in other ways too. So what do I mean exactly by this illusion of duality? From a yogic perspective, the entire multiverse appears to be made up of binary structures, such as day and night, hot and cold, summer and winter, up and down, fear and love. But yoga literally means to yoke or to join or union. And yoga philosophy states that these apparent binary structures are part of a giant illusion that appears to keep us separate. And in fact, the final stages of the process of yoga involve freeing oneself from that illusion of separation so that the practitioner realizes their oneness with everything in and beyond this material realm. And this experience of oneness or of our true nature is also known as self-realization with a capital S, self. The yoga term tantra means to weave. I think of a spider weaving her web, the idea of creation and interconnectivity. The term is derived from the root words tan, meaning to expand, and tra, meaning to make free in Sanskrit, suggesting that Tantra is a system that expands consciousness and also leads to spiritual liberation. Another way to say this is that the practices of both yoga and Tantra systematically remove the illusion of separation from our consciousness so that we can realize our true selves, who are already free underneath this illusion. And this is called self-realization. Consider the yin-yang symbol. There's darkness within the light half and light within the dark half. Both halves are equal and both need the other to be complete, to be balanced. So they only appear to be two, to be binary, but really they are one. And in my opinion, this oneness is the spectrum. So to walk the path of oneness is not only a yogic and tantric path, but it's also the path of the Priestexx. So what the heck is a Priestexx, and what do I mean by that? First, we'll define the term and explore the archetype of the Priestexx, and then we'll discuss the remembrance and awakening of queer Priestexxes worldwide who are using queer joy as resistance. And this is what I refer to as the Queer Priestexx uprising. So we live in a time of patriarchy, which means most of us are familiar with the term priest, like in a Christian or Catholic sense, usually a man who spiritually guides a congregation of church members and facilitates ceremonies such as weddings and funerals, right? However, this idea that only men can responsibly act as a mediator between humans and the divine is a relatively recent idea in human history, also rooted in colonialism, capitalism, and of course, patriarchy. There was once a time when societies were actually mostly matriarchal, meaning they centered and prioritized the well-being of children. Women, known as priestesses, as well as gender non-conforming people whom we might call priestexes, were allowed to serve in this role. Therefore, priestexx is a gender-neutral term for any person who is seen as a spiritual leader by their community and is authorized to perform sacred rituals and rites such as marriage, funerals, and other rites of passage. And this may or may not be associated with any specific religion or religious practices because it can also be pagan. It can also be self-initiated. The psycho-spiritual role of the Priestexx archetype is similar to that of a shaman, and in indigenous wisdom traditions worldwide, the shaman is the one who goes into the subconscious realm, between worlds or between dimensions, if you will, and comes back with wisdom to share for the collective. Another word for this is a witch. Whether referred to as a priestess, a shaman, a witch, or a pagan, cultures around the world have known this archetype or something similar to it. These non-hierarchical spiritual leaders were regarded as community healers and often had knowledge of herbs and plants that were local to the region so that they could practice folk medicine. And this is part of how they healed people. And this insight, this wisdom made them powerful, therefore threatening to larger systems of power, organized religion, healthcare, and government. You see, if people are empowered with access to knowledge and medicine within their local communities and it's affordable and accessible, they will not feel afraid. And if they're not afraid, they'll be much more difficult to control. During the process of patriarchal colonization of Christianity, regional pagan deities and spiritual leaders who honored the earth and the old ways were systematically targeted, killed, or jailed worldwide. And then they were replaced with Christian leaders. This is the true origin story of many Christian saints known today, such as Saint Bridget, who was originally the Celtic goddess Bridget, or Saint Olaf of Norway, who was a king who forcibly Christianized Norway by destroying pagan temples and killing any pagan resistors. And the Christian church has very clearly been used as a weapon by both patriarchy and capitalism. That's a whole fascinating topic that is outside of the scope of this episode. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I will link some good resources in the show notes for you guys for further exploration. So black and white or either or thinking creates an us versus them mentality. This idea that there's only one right answer, and if you are wrong, you're damned for all eternity. It's a very kind of masculine approach, right? This black and white thinking then creates fear. And remember, fear means a population is much easier to control than a population who is secure and has access to knowledge and resources. So black and white thinking is fear-based thinking. It's based on this illusion of duality, this illusion of separation. And the more we buy into that illusion, the more fear we feel. There is some incentive for the powers that be to want to keep us in that fear state, right? But the more we connect with and experience our true selves, our higher selves, that self-realization with a capital S that I mentioned, then the more love we feel. And a population that feels grounded, calm, and rooted in love, again, is very difficult to control. Think about it in the context of capitalism, selling a stick of deodorant based on the idea that if you don't smell good, everybody's going to hate you and the ladies won't love you and you're going to lose your job and all this crazy stuff. Like selling anything based on fear is so much easier than, hey, you're already healthy and you smell good anyway, but here's some nice perfume or some nice deodorant that you don't necessarily need. Like nothing bad will happen if you don't have this, but if you want it, it's there, right? Like fear is a very raw, potent psychological motivator for humans. It's a powerful force to get us to buy something. Therefore, it's a tool that capitalism just loves to use. Keeping our nervous systems chronically dysregulated is a great way to, again, motivate people to act impulsively, act out of desperation or out of this place of need, right? Whether you've thought about this before or if this is a brand new idea for you, you may hear this and feel it to be true in your body and your bones. That was certainly the case for me when I began to learn more and became initiated onto this path by some of my teachers. So something about this theory strikes a deep resonance within you without requiring any logical additional proof, which you're welcome to research. Like it is available. Most of it has been destroyed by the powers that be. But like I said, I'll link those resources for you guys. So like, please do look into it. But you may just feel this like intuitively. Your body may just be feeling this. And if that's the case for you, you may be remembering a past life as a priestess. So, are you a priestess in this lifetime, or were you one in a past incarnation? Here are 7 signs that you are part of the sacred queer priestess remembrance, awakening, and uprising that is happening on Earth right now. Number 1, you feel connected to the divine mother, the divine feminine, everywhere at all times. Deep in your heart, you've always known intuitively that having a relationship with the divine does not require going to any specific building at any specific day and time. Number 2, in fact, you may feel most connected to the divine when you're in nature, surrounded by the elements. And when you're there, you may become so immersed and so present that you lose track of time. Sign 3, you understand that divine connection is not exclusive to any single group, place, belief system, or practice. Many paths lead to one truth, and you don't see any one path as being superior to the others or the only correct one. Number 4, you believe that divine connection belongs to everyone by birthright, and that gender, sexuality, race, ability, and class cannot affect this simple truth. And because you believe this to be true, you may also feel especially inclined to protect or to fight for the rights of the marginalized and the downtrodden. Number 5, you see through the capitalist idea that spiritual progress is something you can purchase in the form of philanthropic donations or certification programs. And you know that even if money is no object, sincerity is priceless. There must be a longing for that communion with the divine. Number 6, you know that divine connection can be directly experienced by anyone, regardless of whether they have any degrees, any qualifications, certifications, no need for disposable income or even permission. In fact, sometimes material wealth and knowledge clouds our intuition rather than increasing it. No gatekeeping, basically. And number 7, if institutions label divine connection as witchcraft or something else with a negative connotation, when that divine connection comes directly from our own inner power instead of from an external authority, then you resonate with this definition of being a witch, a pagan, a shaman, or a priestess yourself. In other words, you resonate with having that divine connection that is direct experience from you to the divine and not reliant on any external authority. If you believe in that, then you are a priestess. So take a moment to reflect on the 7 signs that I just listed, you guys. If you want, you can grab your notebook and note down which ones resonate and which ones don't. For this week's reflection journaling prompt, I would love to invite you to journal about those 7 signs. And yeah, just see what resonates, what doesn't. Maybe you do like a tally or a point system. Could even include a half point if some of them only like half or partially resonate for you. And then count up your total and journal about your total and what that means for you personally. And also about how the binary spectrum or the illusion of duality comes up in your life and affects you most personally. To summarize, today we discussed the illusion of duality and the sacred remembrance and awakening of queer priestexes worldwide. We explored the priestexx archetype and decoded the meaning of the term priestexx. And we covered 7 signs that you are a part of the sacred queer priestexx uprising that is happening on Earth right now. Fear not, my friends. Stay grounded in love beyond all the binaries that appear to divide us. Political parties, religions, races, genders, and more. Because the truth beyond the illusion is that we are all one. And you guys, another powerful sign that you are a priestexx, either in this lifetime or previous lifetimes or both, is that you feel called to travel. You may have a very specific intuitive connection to a certain place or culture. Maybe you felt called to visit a certain place from a very young age without even really knowing anything about it. This could be literally anywhere across time and cultures. So you may find that it's a place your ancestors are from, or a place that you don't have ancestral connection to in this lifetime, but you've always felt an intuitive calling or a spiritual connection to that place or culture, which could indicate having a past lifetime there. For me, I've always felt the call to travel, despite being relatively nervous and afraid to do it on my own at first, and despite having a relatively limited budget. But there are a few places that I've always felt intuitively connected and called to their sacred land and culture, even when I was too young to explain or really have a reason why. So to me, I took it as a sign of having lived past lifetimes in those places. I'm so blessed to have visited several countries now, and travel is absolutely such a potent spiritual experience in so many ways, you guys. It is my great privilege and honor to guide others through that experience. And I'm excited to share that in the coming months, we will be announcing a few opportunities to travel with me early next year to attend yoga retreats in two of my all-time favorite places. Make sure you follow me on Instagram because over the next several weeks, I will be posting hints of the two places we're going. Can you guess where? The first trip will be announced on May 1st, and the second trip will be announced on June 1st, you guys. Both trips are taking place early 2027. So if you want to be among the first to know about all of the trip details, itinerary, maybe snag one of the early bird discount spots, you'll want to get onto our email list ASAP. So don't forget to do that. Download your free self-care resource guide on the QSA website, yourloved.one/pod. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, let's stay connected and stay witchy. I'll talk to you soon, and blessed be. With all my love, Lady.